Hey guys, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and it is Sunday, so we are doing breaches of the week. Now, before we begin, I'd like to thank the following people that sent me messages or emails or linked me or whatever they did to get me this information. It always helps me out, and that would be Jason Dance, Jacqueline Wolf, and David Walker. Guys, thank you very much. And if you have a tip for me, please feel free to tag me, message me, send it to me. It always helps me out. And with that, let's start in India with mobile payments app BHIM. Security researchers just discovered that about 7.26 million records were left exposed basically to the public on their website. Now, exposed data includes information like names, dates of birth, age, gender, home address, case status, and Aadhaar card details, among other things. The data was stored apparently on an insecure Amazon Web Services, AWS, S3 bucket, and so here we are. Hopefully they will have cleaned that up. But if you use BHIM out of India, heads up to you. Moving on, let's talk about Aviana Healthcare. This is actually an update. I reported on this, I believe, months ago when I went back and looked at my notes. A class action suit has been filed against the Atlanta-based Aviana Healthcare in the wake of a 2019 data breach at the pediatric home healthcare provider that affected more than 166,000 individuals. This breach, which was reported to the Department of Health and Human Services on February 14th, Valentine's Day, is technically right now the fifth largest breach added to the HHS HIPAA breach reporting tool. It's also known as the Wall of Shame. You can go and look at it. And so right now, this is the fifth largest breach reported for the year 2020. I have a feeling that's going to go further down the list as the year progresses. But heads up, if you use Aviana Healthcare and have been affected, you might be in for some money, which, given class action, will probably be $100. Moving on, we're going to be talking about a company called Central Files, Inc., and this one is actually rather serious. Now, they are basically a secure record storage and destruction company out of the state of Indiana, and they are a third-party supplier to multiple Indiana healthcare outfits. And between April 1st and April 9th of 2020, basically the South Bend entities, which I will list here in a moment, meaning the hospital and care systems that were using them out of South Bend, Indiana, were alerted that confidential documents which had been entrusted to Central Files for secure storage and or destruction were actually discovered just improperly dumped into an unsecured area in the South Bend area. So that's obviously a huge issue. They weren't shredding the documents, they were just basically chucking them out. Now, sometime before April 1st of 2020 and several more times before until May 15th, 2020 is basically when this happened. As determined right now by investigators. The dump includes sensitive and legally protected information about these organizations, including patients, clients, and other employees. Central Files was paid to actually destroy these certain records, and then they were supposed to secure the remaining records until a transfer to a record storage company. So they were basically like a middleman, and they really didn't do their job. And here we are. So with that, if you have been a patient or an employee or a client or in the supply chain of any one of these over the years, heads up to you. So St. Joseph Health System used them from 99 to 2013. Allied Physicians of Michiana used them from 1995 to 2007. New Avenues from June 2004 to December of 2015. South Bend Medical Foundation from 2009 to 2015. The Goshen Emergency Physicians LLC from 2002 to 2010. Michiana Hematology Oncology from 2002 to 2004. And Cardiology Associates from March of 2007 to November of 2013, which eventually became Beacon Health Systems. All of these organizations were basically affected. And so heads up to you, your data might be out there because, quite frankly, they just didn't do their job, and that really sucks. Moving on, we're going to head on over to Spain, because there is a Spanish e-learning platform called 8 Belts. They have a misconfigured AWS S3 bucket as well, and it is estimated that the private details of at least 100,000 e-learners, including national identity numbers, full names, email IDs, and contact information, could be at risk because basically they left it exposed. So heads up if you use 8 Belts out of Spain. Moving on, we're going to be talking about the Japanese cryptocurrency exchange CoinCheck. Apparently attackers took control over its account at a local domain registrar and hijack some of its domain names, which they later used to contact some of the customers. Now, the exchange paused remittance operations on its platform this past Tuesday, while it is investigating the incident, but other operations such as withdrawals or deposits have not been blocked at this time. The company said the initial attack took place on Sunday, May 31st, and the attackers gained access to CoinCheck's account at oname.com, which is the domain registrar. So Oname has confirmed this, and hopefully CoinCheck will be resecured and back online soon. Moving on. We're going to be talking about Digital Management Inc. or DMI, and this is one of a few that I'm really going to be oh my godding this week. They are basically a major U.S. IT and cybersecurity provider, and they also happen to be one of the IT contractors for NASA. Now, apparently, the Doppelpayer ransomware gang went out publicly and congratulated SpaceX and NASA for their first human-operated rocket launch, and then immediately announced that they had infected the network of one of NASA's contractors. Now, according to the press release, DMI's customer list includes several Fortune 100 companies and many government agencies, which means we might be seeing data breach disclosures thanks to DMI's own data breach. And quite frankly, if they're providing cybersecurity, that's not good for them. It's not good at all. So hopefully, DMI has locked that down, and hopefully their clients are safe. Moving on, we are actually not done with U.S. contractors, because next up is Westech International. Now, this is a U.S. military missile contractor, so this should be a fun one. And they confirmed that they had been hit and that their computers had been encrypted. The attackers have already leaked files to suggest that they actually have access to this sensitive data, which includes payroll and emails. And it seems that they copied the information out or exfiltrated it out before they encrypted Westech's infrastructure. Now, unauthorized access to data about intercontinental ballistic nuclear missiles would be bad enough, but depending on what the attackers access, this could have actually had more serious repercussions, because Westech's client list is pretty extensive. Now, this list from Westech of their customers includes U.S. military branches, government infrastructure agencies, other major military contractors, including the U.S. Army, the Air Force, the Navy, Joint Service Agencies, the Commerce Department, the Energy Department, the General Services Administration, Booz Allen Hamilton, General Dynamics Information Technology, Lockheed Martin Information Technology, and more. This is not the Doppelpayer ransomware gang that hit DMI. They were too busy hitting DMI, so the Maze ransomware gang took on Westech, and here we are. This, too, like DMI, might have massive repercussions over the weeks and months, and you'll probably be hearing me reporting on some of the things that I just listed here. That's insane, and we are nowhere near done. Next up, we're going to go to another IT services giant. That's the third in a row. This would be Conduit. They just admitted they had a ransomware attack that hit their European operations, but they're saying that they also managed to restore most of those systems within 8 hours. Apparently, they were hit on Friday, May 29th. The company did not name the ransomware type or the intrusion vector. I can probably understand that for both optics and security purposes, but the Maze ransomware group has now posted stolen Conduit data, including apparent customer audits, to its dark web page. So when they got done with Westech, apparently they hit Conduit. This is a huge problem because these are IT and cybersecurity providers. They should really be stepping up their game here. Moving on, we're going to be talking about a math-solving website called Mathway. In January of 2020, Mathway apparently suffered a data breach that exposed over 25 million records. The data was subsequently sold on the dark web, and this includes names, Google and Facebook IDs, email addresses, and salted password hashes. I don't have any more information than that, but if you use Mathway, heads up to you. Moving on, let's head up to the Great White North and talk about Fitness Depot out of Canada. They announced to their customers that their personal and financial information was stolen following a breach that affected the company's e-commerce platform earlier this month, or actually, in May. This apparently looks like it was a MageCart attack. That is the MageCart gang that has been doing this to payment portals all over the internet, if you will. The breach goes back apparently as far as February 18th of 2020, as far as we can tell so far, and customer name, address, email address, telephone number, and credit card number were hit. Now, Fitness Depot blames its internet service provider, and this is where it gets interesting, for the data breach. They're saying their internet service provider is to blame for this because, and I quote, based on our preliminary findings, it appears our internet service provider, ISP, neglected to activate the antivirus software on our account. So in other words, Fitness Depot was relying on whatever antivirus their internet service provider would give them. When the internet service provider failed to activate that, apparently, here we are. So we'll see if that holds up in court, or Canadian court in this case, and we'll go from there. Moving on, let's talk about ST Engineering, which I will put up there with Westech and DMI and Conduit and all of that, even though they're not in IT, but they are one of the leading engineering groups worldwide, specializing in things like aerospace, electronics, land systems, and the marine sectors, and they got hit by the Maze ransomware gang, which I swear to God doesn't take a day off. They claim to have stolen, Maze claims to have stolen 1.5 terabytes of data, and they also appear to be a NASA contractor, so clearly NASA is having a really bad week with its supply chain and disclosures. Hopefully ST Engineering will get that locked down. Moving on, let's talk about Aries Software. This is a student data management system used by over 600 kindergarten through 12 or K through 12 public school districts in the United States. They suffered a data breach after an unidentified and unauthorized person accessed an unknown amount of parent and student data. So pretty vague in their disclosure. Despite access to a limited data set, if the attackers managed to infiltrate any of the email accounts, they could do obviously other things like target other accounts, financial accounts, social media accounts, phishing attacks against any list they can get and all of this. And so here we go. If your students or your school district is using Aries software, I would be on alert for a potential attack. And this smacks of last year with the Pearson data breach, which basically a bazillion school districts in the United States use, including all the ones around me. I checked and all of that, and we saw just disclosure after disclosure after disclosure for that. And so Aries Software is this year's Pearson. So here we go. Moving on, let's talk about Student Advocates Group. And quite frankly, you're not going to like them, and neither am I, and I'm not a fan of anybody getting a data breach, but this one I do and don't like, and I will tell you why. Because according to the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, in a press release, they named Student Advocates Group as a student loan debt relief scheme that, and I quote, built millions out of consumers by charging illegal upfront fees and falsely promising to lower or eliminate consumers' loan payments or balances. So basically, they are preying on students and they're jerks. So apparently, researchers at cybernews.com recently discovered an unsecured, basically Amazon AWS S3 bucket that contained more than 55,000 call recordings between loan support workers from this organization and American consumers with outstanding student loans. So on top of scamming in-debt students out of even more money, they're now exposing these scam students to a data breach. And quite frankly, I hate people like this. They suck. And so if you have anything to do with Student Advocates Group, please sue them for me. I'd appreciate it as a personal favor. Moving on. Let's talk about, we're heading back up to Canada, and we're going to be talking about the CPAs, or Chartered Professional Accountants of Canada, because they discovered that an unauthorized third party had accessed certain personal information through a cyber attack against the CPA Canada website. And honestly, why hit accountants? Everybody needs an accountant. We all have to pay taxes and all of that. They're just nice people. Come on. Now, the incident affects over 329,000 individuals, including members and other stakeholders of CPA Canada. The information involved predominantly relates to the distribution of CPA magazine and includes personal information such as names, addresses, email addresses, and employer names. In cases where passwords and full credit cards were affected, CPA Canada is saying that everything else was protected by encryption. Hopefully that's true, and hopefully they'll get that cleaned up soon. Moving on, let's head on over to Kenya for a rather unfortunate situation. Apparently, various Mount Kenya University students and other Kenyan students and other universities could be in danger of online attacks. Now, here's what's been going on. Apparently, a Pakistani pen tester discovered that personal information about students in Kenya are being shared online, basically in the dark web on hacker forums. Apparently, data consists of names, general addresses, and phone numbers of hundreds of thousands of Kenyan students. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because apparently this Pakistani pen tester actually notified the schools about 3 years ago with this situation, but almost nothing has been done at Mount Kenya University and others to actually get this fixed. That's actually a very serious problem. We cannot be lax or lazy when it comes to implementing cybersecurity standards. And every company that I've just mentioned here, organization, including Mount Kenya University, really need to make sure that they are vigilant on this, because this is how we protect our people. So hopefully Mount Kenya University, as well as other universities in Kenya, will step up their game and get that fixed. Moving on, let's head back to the United States here and talk about the San Francisco Employees Retirement System. This is basically the city's pension fund for their workers. They've reported a data breach affecting around 74,000 members. Now, the pension system's vendor, 10up Inc., said an outside party accessed a test data server with the members' information on February 24th of this year. The server was closed, and 10up Inc. said there were no evidence that information was removed, but could not confirm if the information was viewed or copied. Now, the data, which was last updated on August 29, 2018, may have included first names, home addresses, dates of birth, designated beneficiary information, and SFERS website usernames and passwords, and this is according to their disclosure. Retired pension members may have also had a 1099-R tax form information and bank account routing numbers exposed as well. So heads up, if you have worked for the city of San Francisco and you're part of the employees retirement system, you might want to contact them. They probably owe you credit monitoring or more. Moving on, let's talk about Z5. That's ZEE5. This is apparently an Indian streaming service with over 150 million subscribers worldwide, obviously based out of India. Now, an attacker identifying themselves as John Wick and Korean hackers claim to have breached systems for basically Z5 and are threatening to sell the database basically on criminal markets, identity theft forums, and all of that. I don't have much more information beyond that at the moment, but obviously if it changes, I'll let you guys know. And finally, I want to talk about pretty much the entire island of Taiwan, and this is actually very interesting because sensitive personal data, apparently belonging to more than 20 million Taiwanese citizens, has appeared basically in darknet marketplaces, and this is according to threat intelligence outfits that have been researching this and tracking this. Now, in a blog post published on May 29th, Cybel said an underground retailer of basically data breach information, which is basically a known and reputable, quote unquote, group, if you will, basically verified the data's authenticity and has named a source of the leak. Now, the source of this leak apparently is the Ministry of the Interior's Department of Household Registration. Now, a spokesperson for this group told Cybel that this claim was unconfirmed. Now, apparently there's 3.5 gigabytes of data in this that contains citizen full names, postal addresses, phone numbers, government IDs, genders, and dates of birth. Obviously, some of the speculation here, given the essential nonstop cyber warfare between Taiwan and mainland China, this could be very much in the Chinese wheelhouse, like the PLA, for example. So we'll see where this goes, although there is no evidence to say it's definitively one person or the other. That's a very serious issue because that entire tiny island's population is going to be under threat like this nonstop 24 hours a day. So we'll see where that happens, but those were your data breaches of the week, and it was just another crazy long video for this week. So thanks for sticking with me, and I hope you weren't affected by any of these breaches. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP, and please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online. Thanks, guys.